Because of the pandemic this summer and the fact that we haven't been able to go very far from home, I've spent a lot of time riding my motorcycle around here. In fact, I've put about 7,500 kilometers on it, which is a lot for me. And riding out of here on the same roads all the time started to get a little bit boring, so I thought I would start stopping at the little points of interest along the way. You've seen those signs on the highway, right? The little sign that says point of interest 1 kilometer, and then you stop and it tells you some history about something. I've been stopping at lots of those. My favorite was the town of Forward, Saskatchewan. Forward, Saskatchewan can be found west of Weyburn on Highway 13 between Trossachs and Pangman. And if you stop at the little point of interest there, you'll find out a bunch of really interesting things. For example, in 1913, they picked up the entire town and moved it to that location. It had been 5 kilometers to the northeast of there, but when the railways went through, the junction of the CP and the CN line was at this spot, so they picked up the whole town and moved it to that place, to the railway. Isn't that bizarre? 1913 they did that. And the town flourished. It said that the town had a population of about 1,200 people, which was big for those days. And some of the services it had a lumber yard, a notary public, a printing shop, a post office, an implement dealer, had a jail and a school and a church and a fire hall and a drugstore and a cafe and a blacksmith and a livery barn. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? Again, for a small town, that's a really good small town. Now, let me see if I can describe to you really quickly what Forward, Saskatchewan looks like today. So use your imaginations, close your eyes and think with me. I want you to imagine a flat prairie field. No trees, no roads, no anything. Just a flat prairie field full of sky and horizon. You've just imagined Forward, Saskatchewan. There's nothing there anymore. They went from being 1,200 people and having 10 different businesses to nothing. In fact, the Karen at the spot continues and it says that Forward gradually declined. Structures were not rebuilt after fires, it lacked a grain elevator, and other towns growing along the line provided competition. The last house was moved from the site in 1966. So in 1913 they moved the entire town. By 1966 it doesn't even exist anymore. Now, you might think the point of my talk is something like, don't get too attached to things here, nothing lasts forever. Sort of as James chapter 4 verse 14 says, your life is a vapor, you're here and then you're gone, and there's nothing that lasts. And that'd be a fine lesson. I need to be reminded of that once in a while, but here's the lesson I really want to leave you with. As I stood at the site of Forward, Saskatchewan with nothing there, I got thinking about the fact that that used to be someone's home. That people lived there and they worked there and they got married there and they went to school there and they laughed and they played games and they had some trouble, but that was their life. People called that little spot on the road home. That was their place. And it made me think about the fact that regardless of whether it's there today or not, that doesn't negate the fact that to someone at some point, that was home. And they were happy there. There was something good about being there. There was a reason to be there. Sometimes I get so focused on what's going to come. Sometimes people talk to me about the future and where things are going and how horrible everything looks and all this sort of stuff. And I try not to buy into that because I'm not living in fear. I don't want to live in fear of what might be. But sometimes I get listening to that, and sometimes I get worrying about things, and sometimes I wonder how things are going to turn out. And what I need to remember is that the only time I have to be happy, the only time I have to live is now. Because now is all you ever have. There is no other thing other than now. It's always now. This is now. This is your moment to be happy. This is your chance to enjoy little things. This is your opportunity to go watch a sunset today. This is your opportunity to look for your blessings. This is it. Ecclesiastes in chapter 3, that famous chapter, tells us that there's a time under the sun for everything. There's a time to be born and a time to die. There's a time to plant and a time to harvest. There's a time to laugh and a time to cry, all those sorts of things. But the point is, this is the time. This is it. This is your life. And if you waste this, you got nothing else. Someone once said, happiness can only be found in the present moment, not in some imaginary place in the future. I think about the people of Forward, Saskatchewan, who moved their town and then lived there for 40 years until it was gone. They didn't know it was going to be gone, but they did what they could while they were there. They laughed and had fun while they were there. You're not always going to be here, but this is your chance. This is it. This is your life. Can you find something to be happy about today? Can you find your joy?